Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for the monthly meetup, a roundtable discussion with the Rugby alumni programs. We'll give it just another minute as we let the audience into the event. You can say hello in the chat, you can wave to us, but thank you again for joining us. And we have a lot to discuss tonight and even to celebrate. Thanks so much.
Joe, back up a little. Ann told me if I move away from the camera, I won't look as old.
Too late for that, George.
I know.
George,
I said, Ann, do you want me to go to another room? I mean, how are we going to cover it up?
Well, she told me she was doing makeup before
I know.
the Zoom call. So at least you have that going for you.
Well, I didn't finish the spray tan and all the extra makeup, so I wasn't so
George,
cheap. I get Botox shots.
George Daly's got the right idea. Camera from above is slimming. You know?
Is that it? It makes me look thinner.
Well, again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. A lot to unpack, a lot to discuss, a lot to highlight, and a lot to look forward to tonight. And to help us with that discussion, we have Greg Matthew, who is the rugby coordinator. We have Joe McCrudden, class of 1987, one of our key rugby volunteers, and George Durney from the class of 1985, another key rugby volunteer here at Siena. And thanks for all three of the panelists to come on tonight and talk about the rugby alumni programs. I'm Brandon Murphy. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Relations. And Greg, I kind of just want to begin, we just wrapped up the fall season. There was a lot to highlight. Can you tell the audience just a little bit about the men's and the women's programs and what they accomplished this fall?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this season was really the first opportunity for us to kind of show what Siena Rugby really has accumulated over the last couple of years. Obviously, with COVID, there was a real down period in all aspects of society, which, kind of presented an opportunity for us as a college to really see what we could do and push the boundaries with what we expected to come back with. So, that's really, evident in the men's side. A lot of us already know that the men were successful in the small college bracket this year where we won a national championship. The season was really developed, structured, and driven to that point. We had to make sure that the coaching was in place where we had people to kind of guide us in that right direction and really set a good example for how both the men's and the women's programs will be developed and are structured moving forward. But equally on the women's side, they did an incredible job that I have to kind of put that credit to the coaching staff who really brought together a group of seniors, 12 seniors, and then fairly inexperienced group from the rest, which, is exciting for the future because we still remain with a good core group going forward. Despite the fact we're losing 12 seniors, you would think that was a large group to lose, but with the light of who we brought in and the freshmen we've attracted this year, that's a good solid base. And the women did fantastic. They went through the first round of their playoffs. They reached the playoffs and really pushed RPI, who was the team that they were eventually defeated by. They really pushed them a long way in a game that, had previous preseason games shown we shouldn't have really been anywhere near RPI. But they did. They played extremely well. And then actually closed out the season with a 100-0 victory over Paul Smith. So both teams, I don't want to say overachieved because I think internally we all knew that we could potentially reach the goals that we did. But as a whole, they did extremely well, and we're very happy with the way that both programs have developed this year.
And Greg, you touched a little bit about it with the women playing RPI, and today is open for all the rugby alumni and just Siena alumni and fans of rugby. Can you just elaborate a little bit on, the conference that both teams are in, some of the teams that might play, the level that they're competing at?
Yeah, so I'll start with the women. The women actually are in a Division II tri-state conference. So the women are actually playing at a fairly good standard. They will have played, and I can actually tell you exactly who they plan to play. RPI is definitely one of the teams that they have played in the past, and we will most likely see them come around again. But, you know, there's some really strong teams in there that the women will play. I would like to give you the exact, because we did actually just get their roster, which is quite exciting, because we already know the women. So we will play SUNY Maritime this year. We'll play Stony Brook, Rutgers. We'll play U Albany again, and Hofstra. So some really good opponents in there that we expect to play in the fall. It's a slight change from previous years where we're playing. We've played Vassar in the past, RPI, but this year we're in a conference where we think we will, you know, do fairly well in, definitely hold our own. So we're excited on the women's side to see how we can develop that, and really that will be, you know, the core of this group will be important to bring back, you know, for that pre-season. Really hit the ground running with some really good high-level skill development, and to really play, you know, our couple good pre-season games, with our first game being 9/25/22, which will be SUNY Maritime. So excellent opportunity for us to grow on the women's side, and that's the key word in the development space for the women is growth over this next year. Whereas the men we're looking to maintain. We, on the men's side, will most likely be moved up to Division 1 AA, which we are still in the application process. I suppose that's the best way to put it. We're in the application process to be accepted to D1 AA, which is part of NCR. So we don't have full understanding of who we will play yet, because that league is actually being restructured. But again, the likelihood is we will be playing fairly strong teams like Iona, AIC, American International College. So there'll be good competition in there, and a level that I think we will be competitive at as well.
And Greg, you talk about a lot of the growth of these two programs, you know, in such a quick period of time. And that's also a tribute to the players that we have here playing rugby. Can you touch a little bit on the recruiting process, you know, some of the prep that you've been doing this year to get these talented players here at Siena?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, we are obviously, you know, we're testing the water and seeing how we can manage the process. And I'm excited to say we now have a structure in place regarding our recruitment process. We have goals and targets which have been set for this coming year. So we're excited to have some structure and a way to kind of lead that forward. I expect, you know, the growth on the men's team to stabilize, where we really have a core group big enough to play with two teams. But then also the women to start raising that profile as well, where we start to pick off, you know, internationals for the women's side. And, you know, going to fairs in New Jersey, for example, is a strong, you know, Morris Rugby Club is a strong part of the country where we will pick up players from. We have connections in California for both the men's and women's. So this next year, we will look to take advantage of some of these connections we have and the relationships we built. So yeah, the recruitment, again, just even on this year, I think will be a growth pattern for the women, where we're aiming to have at least 4 or 5 recruits coming to the school with rugby experience. And that is kind of shadowed again with the men's side in a similar pattern.
And I mentioned in the beginning, you know, there's a lot to celebrate tonight too. The men's program has a national championship that we got this fall. And I remember from hosting the alumni watch party at the Ruck, you know, right down the street from me, the energy at the Ruck was unbelievable. Lots of cheering, lots of fans there. Can you talk a little bit about the playoffs and going down to Texas and winning that national championship?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we were in a position where we went to the playoffs in Boston in November. Certainly the first round, fairly confident. We had good understanding of who we were playing and what it would take to win. And then the second round in Boston, where we played at the mid-November, again, we had an idea of the type of players we would be playing against. You know, we played Maritime Academy, very strong team. We knew they would be defensively strong, you know, with their military background. So we had plans in place. Now going to Houston was a completely different thing, because that was, you know, a totally different experience for some of our players. some of our players who are domestic kids had never played at that level before, had only maybe 2 or 3 years experience with a year of COVID in between. So, it was a really exciting experience for those students to have. Going down there, I certainly, certainly the second half of that final game was a little more nervy than I probably would have liked, but that's the whole part of it. That shows the strength that we have in that group, their desire to win for Siena, the desire to win for each other as well. It was really exciting. The players loved the experience. We were excited to bring that trophy home and share it with the rest of campus. Really set out a template and a pathway for how we want to develop both the men's and the women's this coming year.
I remember being at the Ruck, and I think I was sweating the entire game. But what was impressive was, I think that watch party got put together in less than a day, and our alumni showed up and they were excited. But before we talk about how our alumni come together and get engaged with the programs, when Joe mentions this, can you give us a little sneak preview into the spring season and what we can look forward to with that?
Yeah, so we Siena men will be hosting a tournament on the 3rd of April. That's really an exciting and good opportunity for us to play some different teams. We're trying to keep it more upstate, so we play teams that we may not have played before, who should be partners in this rugby development in the Northeast. That will see us play Ithaca. We will play Lemoyne, Clarkson, and Plattsburgh will be one of the other teams that come up, or come down, should I say, from Plattsburgh. So that's a really exciting event for us to kind of establish, and hopefully that's a year-on-year thing for the men's team. We will then go on the following week in April 9th to play an invitational at Brown University. So Siena will play Brown. We will play Harvard University, American International College, and Babson. So again, Babson will be a return from the semi-final in the regionals that we went down to Boston the first weekend in November. So that will also be an exciting game to play in.
Hey, Greg, for the alumni, these are all the tournament. This is sevens, correct?
This is all sevens. Yes.
All
yeah.
sevens, sorry.
This is all sevens, where we're kind of taking sevens for the first time and developing it as a program, and another outlet for growth and development amongst the players on the men's side. We will also play Clarkson, Union, and Plattsburgh 10s on the 15 side. So we are actually running 2 programs at the same time on the men's side, where we're kind of developing core skills is our key aim for this summer or for this season, and really gives us an opportunity to play. On the women's side, we are mainly looking at 15s, but we do have some 7s programs in there as well. We will, again, not knowing that we were playing them in the league system in the fall, we actually play Albany on the 3rd. At UAlbany, we will play Fairfield or at Fairfield in the Tri-State Conference Sevens tournament. So again, it's a large tournament in sevens that we will play. Excitingly enough, we are able to finally establish our Maria Brown Memorial Tournament, which will be May 1st, which is a really important event for us as a school, as a club, both men's and women's, to make sure that we can memorialize Maria Brown and keep her in memory as we go through. Changing our St. Patrick's tournament on the women's side, we're now transferring that over to be the Maria Brown Memorial. And then they'll finish up the season in May against Hofstra, or at Hofstra, again, another sevens tournament. So again, a blend of 15s and 7s.
And there's going to be an opportunity at the end of this to have any questions that you might have for Greg. If you have any questions now that you want to throw into the chat, we'll save them to the end of the program. But we want to kind of pivot over to Joe now a little bit and talk about the history of Rugby Alumni Weekend, what happens during Rugby Alumni Weekend, and the golf tournament. So Joe, if you could just kind of give a broad umbrella of what that weekend entails for our alumni, that'd be great.
Sure. First of all, we just want to thank Greg for all his hard work this year. And I think I can speak for everybody saying that, we're just so excited that you are part of the Siena family and couldn't be more happy that you're going to be the one, kind of guiding us into the future. So thank you for everything.
Thanks, Joe.
So I'm just going to highlight some of the foundational pieces that have been put in place over the years, kind of the springboard for where we are today. I mean, as you know, the rugby community has always been extremely tight-knit, but, it was after 9/11 where our efforts became a lot more organized, a lot more coordinated. We lost Terrence McShane and Mike Tedonio in 9/11. So shortly thereafter, we established a scholarship in their names. And, I don't have to tell all of you on the call that, how generous the alumni is and always has been, but we fully funded the scholarship to $100,000 by the first quarter of 2002. And currently we have about $10,000 a year that we can offer up in scholarships. Currently we have 3 players, each receiving $3,400 each per year. And the scholarships vary depending on, how many people are carrying over, et cetera. But, that's something that has been in place. And, we are just really excited about the fact that we're able to help out some of the rugby players over the years. The Kelly Dugan Scholarship was established on the ladies' side in 2011. I believe right now it's $2,500 a year to a recipient, and that scholarship continues to grow. For those of you that attend the golf tournament, all the on-course fundraisers, those proceeds go towards the Kelly Dugan Scholarship. So, we want to keep that growing. And when you come to the golf tournament, we have money that we raise for other efforts, but the on-field fundraisers are to continue to fund that scholarship. Regarding the golf tournament, again, shortly after 9/11, we established the golf tournament. And after a couple of years of playing in ice and snow and 100-mile-an-hour winds, we caught some nice weather. But there's a core group that comes back year after year, and I think at our highest level we had a full field of about 144 golfers. We kind of settled into between 100 and 110 over the last few years. Take aside the year we had to cancel for the pandemic. But we get a really strong showing every year. I'll talk about it in a minute, but I think it's only going to grow this year and in years ahead. But, we use the proceeds from the golf tournament to fund a lot of different programs, both on the Siena campus and in the community. So on the Siena campus over the years, we've helped fund the ARC renovation project, the Father Kevin Tortorelli Scholarship. We bought books for the library. We've supported professors who needed money for field trips. For many years, until we started putting money into the rugby team, we made contributions to the Saints Alive program, the fund at Siena. So there's been many programs over the years that, all the hard work and the money that's brought in to the golf tournament, has helped out so many programs at Siena. In the community, we've donated to Boys and Girls Clubs, the Michael Jones Supplemental Trust. For many of you, Jonesy was a local rugby player who was paralyzed. We were a gold sponsor for many years for his golf tournament. So just, a way to give back to, to Jonesy and the rugby community. Probably the most gratifying tradition, which we started right in the beginning, is shopping for families through Catholic Family Charities. So a group of alumni actually shop every year at Christmas. We buy gifts for 3 to 4 families. And, these gifts are the only gifts these kids receive. So, it's just, it's real gratifying for us to be able to do that every year. And that's something that, we want to, with all the other things we're doing, that's something we always want to be, kind of a foundational piece, is giving back to the community in that respect. As far as the rugby program, we've given money over the years when needed. Our largest contribution was $40,000 to help build the rugby field. Obviously, that's again thanks to all of you. We kind of set aside money for a number of years to be able to make that large contribution, and then just this past year, we donated $10,000 into the operating budget to help the teams, kind of bridge the gap. So, again, we look forward to continuing to raise money through the golf tournament where we can help out where necessary. And I'll talk a little bit about the weekend in a minute. But as far as the field goes, aside from hiring Greg as our director of rugby, building the pitch on the Siena campus was probably the next most important step in, preparing our teams to compete at the next level. And, now it was certainly a true team effort between the alumni and Siena to pull this off. But now we have one of the nicest fields in the entire Northeast. And in addition to our contribution from the golf tournament, many alumni, many of you on the call here today, made pledges that, made that dream a reality. And all the kids at Siena, all the future players are going to benefit from your generosity for sure. Just one final note on the field. I know George put this out in an email, but Siena has committed to hiring an outside company to, take care of the field, to bring it back into championship form, and, to try to make sure that the field is in great shape for the teams, as we progress and keep going up the levels. It's going to be huge to make sure we have that field in great condition, and Siena has now committed to do that. So, we're very excited about that. As far as alumni weekend, it's used to be in the spring. Golf is always on Friday, the golf tournament. We would have the alumni game on Saturday. And last year we moved it to the fall, and the response was tremendous. I think the fall works really well for people. The weather overall, we have a better chance of having nice weather that first weekend of October. So this year it's October 7th and 8th. Most likely, for consistency, we'll try to keep it that first weekend in October. And, we're hoping now that we, with all the success of the rugby program, that we can get more people back, maybe get back to that 144 golfers where we can raise more money and have some more money set aside for the programs on Friday. And then for Saturday, I would say overwhelmingly all the alumni, especially us old guys, were completely in favor of watching the men's and women's team play and foregoing the alumni game. And, especially when you see the quality of the play, I think, we have to work with Greg once we get in this new league, but the hope would be to schedule both the men and women's to play on Saturday. So, we want to hope everybody will stick around, play golf, stick around, watch the teams play. And I can tell you last year, even though it was a a semi-scrimmage. It was just a lot of fun to just watch the level of play, and that's going to be the plan going forward. So I really just want to thank all of you on this call for always stepping up when we need you to, coming to the golf tournament every year and allowing us to do some of the things we've done. So, I'm going to hand it over to George and let him kind of speak to where we're heading as far as the fundraising efforts.
Thanks, Joe. Well, you heard Greg, obviously supporting the success and more importantly, continuing the success, right? We need to continue to build the program to compete at the levels we're looking for. And to do that, growing programs require growing budgets. Right now, we're looking at a budget of almost 3x what we were investing in the past to really execute on the current plans over the next year. And in looking at that, and just to put the number out there right now, the number is about $150,000 to support both men's and women's clubs, and that's over 2 seasons, a fall and a spring season. Basically, when you look at funding rugby programs at this level, and we looked at obviously other schools, some are very heavily dependent on alumni contributions, but there's basically 3 legs to the stool, if you will. There's the school itself. Siena has actually increased their contribution to this, which will be about 50% of the needs by 33% over historic levels. So the school is stepping up, and I know Greg and others, Ron, obviously working at a trustee level, are trying to support that growth even more. But right now, the school is being very generous in that piece. The next piece of that becomes obviously alumni contributions. And through the support of the development, we're now able to make contributions and have them directed, restricted gifts, which many of you are aware of, directly into the rugby program itself and into the operating budgets. As you know, there was a shortfall last year as the program was skyrocketing to our trip to Houston, and there were incremental expenses. And last year, thanks to the generosity of a lot of people on this call, we did a fund the need, as you know, at the golf tournament and raised close to 30,000, 28 round numbers there. And as Joe said, 10,000 of that was from prior contributions that we had at the golf tournament. So that helped close the gap that we had at that point in time. The expectation right now through these restricted gifts, and all you have to do is to make the gift and say restricted. It could be men's, women's, or just the rugby budget. And I'd encourage everybody to obviously contribute just to the rugby budget and let Greg and the coaches decide how they're going to allocate that money. They're going to do it fairly, and all the programs are going to be supported. And we're looking to generate about 35 to 40,000 in alumni contributions. There'll be a letter going out right after this call to our entire list of, basically it's the list we've used over the years for all our annual rugby event invites. So when you get that letter, I hope you'll give it consideration. And I'd encourage you to pass that on to others. Our lists are good. They've grown over the years, thanks to people like Jim Daly, have constantly worked to try to add new names, but there's always people we're missing. So I'd encourage you to pass that on. The third area that we're counting on, again, in the range of 30 to 40,000 is sponsorships. Most of these clubs are getting significant dollars from sponsorships. In the past, we've gotten some generous contributions, and they've been logo contributions on jerseys, banners. But now we think, to get the dollars that we're looking for now, we've got to deliver more value. And the Siena brand clearly has never been stronger. So we don't want contributions in our sponsorships. We want the sponsors to invest with the idea that connecting their brand with the Siena brand is going to create performance improvement in whatever way they're looking at. So development has a specific person who is going to handle this and help with us to structure agreements with organizations. And of course, there'll be signage and names on jerseys. But when you look at it now, the Siena Rugby brand is far bigger than it's ever been in the past. And when you look at who it touches, obviously you're talking about some 3,500 students. You're talking about 600-800 faculty. You're talking about 50,000 alumni. Even the local schools now, there's been contact with events, and all the folks we're talking about, let's face it, come from households that have a higher household income, more disposable income, and it's also a younger set too, which from an advertising perspective in many respects can be the sweet spot for some of these organizations. Not to mention if we get on, there's an article in the Times Union that's touching 128,000 people on a Sunday. The news, which we were on, and there was a featured story, is touching 500,000 people. So there's room to the brand. Greg's efforts, there's international reach as well. So we're looking to identify, 3 to 5 sponsors that we can engage and talk to them about what their requirements are. And we're looking at putting together customized packages to basically, again, support their effort, what they're trying to achieve with their brand, and obviously create a level of performance improvement. So in a nutshell, that's the strategy. Siena puts in a significant piece. We as alumni continue to invest. And then, through sponsorship, we round it out to hopefully create a budget that'll sustain and grow the program. The team made a tremendous amount of progress this year, but to continue on that progress, to continue for Greg to recruit, to continue to expand the coaching staff, and support all the other initiatives around that, obviously continues to take an investment. So we think Greg has a solid plan. I hope you feel that way. We think some of us have looked at the budget details, and it's all, really well spent and not, I'll use the word, not frivolous investments on the fringes. These are all things that we believe, again, are going to support performance improvement with our program. And then the last piece, again, that sponsorship piece. So if we're able to succeed in all 3 of those, we're certainly doing our job to give Greg the resources, Greg and the coaching staff, to give them the resources to continue to perform at the level that now we've become accustomed to. And obviously now, as Greg talked about, moving up in the women's division, they're already competing at a high level, as we talked about, and moving the men's up, that's a whole nother level of competition, which requires more training, more effort, more coaching. So I'll end with that. I know there's some questions, I'm sure, to Greg, but I want to thank everybody. As Joe said, we're here having this call because of a lot of you on the call have been showing up and investing for 20 years. And so we're saying thank you for showing up, and we're saying thank you in advance for continuing to invest, and hopefully at a higher level. So I'll pass it back. Brandon, now, if you have questions.
Thanks so much for highlighting the season, providing some of the insight of what's to come with Siena Rugby. And I do believe both of these questions are for Greg. Tom has asked, is there going to be any help that is needed at either of these tournaments hosted by Siena that's coming up, Greg?
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly if anyone wants to get involved, there's certainly going to be tasks. I mean, some of the alumni have serviced, previous events for us as well. I don't think we're going to be on that scale, but obviously if there's anyone that wants to assist, timekeeping, for example, is a simple, easy one. Recording, if you want to sit with a video camera, there are little tasks. It won't be anything too strenuous. We're not asking anyone to step up and put their cleats on and referee. But certainly there'll be tasks if people want to. So more the merrier, and always welcome.
And when I first started watching rugby, I was like, there's 15s, there's 7s, there's a bunch of different games going on. So Terrence has asked, any plans for June 2023 for a national CRC 7s competition?
Yeah, so I'll touch on this year, for example. So the men had the opportunity to play in the CRC, which is the College Rugby Championship for 7s. This year, we decided that it was not in our best interest to go to that national championship. for several reasons. One, coaching allowance on the men's side. Secondly, some of our players haven't been home since August last year due to COVID and some of the internationals. So we felt it was best interest to really change gears and develop our rugby sevens for the first season, and then obviously look for the national championships in 2023. So yes, to answer the question, yes, we would look to be going to the national championship with more planning and allowance for those players who may finish in May but then have to stay till June. We do look certainly on the men's to go to the national championship. The women's is again another development season because the sevens will be one season behind the 15s. But eventually we would like to see the women's go to a national championship as well, whether it's CRC with the NCR bracket or whether it's through their tri-state conference.
Thanks for that, Greg. And before we wrap up the program tonight, if anybody has, one last question, they want to unmute themselves, ask anything, put anything into the chat, you guys can have that moment.
One thing I want before we open up the floor, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we're driving the Maria Brown weekend to May 1st. I think it's important that everyone knows that this is going to be a big event for the women's side. We are looking to raise funds. We actually established a plaque at the Grotto in memory of Maria Brown. There is some fundraising still needed for that. But once we go beyond that point, we're actually looking to start an endowment on the women's side. So if there is anyone that wants to help develop the women's side or look for contributions, there's definitely opportunity there and for a good cause. We want to drive both programs forward, but particularly, the women have a current fundraising mission that is, really important to the alumni, recent alumni particularly, but also the student body currently. So if you need more details about that, they can also be provided. Now we can open up the floor.
Awesome.
Greg, I know I'm sorry if I cut anybody off. I know you've been giving this a lot of thought, and you've been giving it a lot of thought for a while. Are you comfortable now that we're going to get all the players enough? Especially the kids that aren't going to play sevens, give them opportunities and give the younger kids the opportunity in the spring to continue to develop.
Yeah, so that was really key to what we were planning and structuring. Myself and the coaches really wanted to ensure, and this is another reason why we pulled back on the sevens. We wanted to create, particularly on the men's side, a season where it was more about that development group. It's more about that group that are in the 15s rather than the sevens. The sevens are more accomplished players, have a better understanding of the game. So that's where we separated the groups and we have them, performing at sevens, but it also allowed others to step up and others to then, show the skill development that they've achieved over this year. So I think we have done a particularly good job at that development based on the size that we have, particularly on the men's side, where we've manufactured and we've created opportunities for those individuals to not only have more time with the coaches, but also to have the opportunity to develop the skills further. It's really important that we continue to develop those individuals who, we are still receiving walk-ons now. We're still growing just based on people seeing what the rugby team has done and wanting to be a part of that environment. So it's a good opportunity for those individuals to, learn those core skills before we're putting them into game. And that's all a drive to hopefully have two teams in the fall that will compete in two different leagues. So I think we have done a particularly good job at ensuring, those who are first-time players or are needing that development time, providing them that opportunity has been our whole objective for this sprint.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. Hey, JJ, I was going to ask a similar question. and I was thinking of it more, kind of selfishly, and I did chat George directly, but he didn't respond to it. I was just going to say, how does the program, as it continues to grow, not lose, some of the ground for guys like George and myself who may not cut it in today's, skill set and
Of
talent.
course.
Now you know why I didn't respond.
I think, in all honesty, we have really, our core mission this entire time was, yes, to develop that program where we are competing at a Division 1 level. And that still has ways to go. We're getting to that D1 AA with the prospect of a D1. But our core mission this entire time was to ensure rugby maintains a sport for everyone. Whether it was the freshman with no rugby experience or the footballer that transferred to rugby in his, junior or sophomore year in high school. So that was the point of developing the spring season and ensuring that it was that split. That was the reason, or one of the major reasons behind pulling back on the sevens, so that we could spend more time with those kids who needed more development in a hope that it would advance their college experience. And that also leads into the point I just mentioned a moment ago, where we're looking to ensure that we have 2 teams in competition next year, where one is, yes, competing at a higher level, but we have that development side, whether it's in the same league we're currently in or in a development league where we're providing enhanced or increased opportunity to those students who are not necessarily looking at rugby as a performance level, but more of a college experience enhancement. So yeah, that piece is definitely strong with where we're at in our development, and we're definitely excited to make sure that we are still providing that opportunity. And that's partly why we look to raise funds, because we would like to bring on, another volunteer coach and another part-time coach who can then ensure we're servicing everyone in that group, despite or regardless of their experience. So you would get a game, Henry, don't worry.
I'm more worried about George, but
yeah, so
Greg,
so was I. That's why I didn't mention him.
Henry, Greg said I could still pick a side here.
And frankly, I was tentative to speak up because Joe called us all out for being old early in this talk there. So, Greg, I do want to say, Greg, you and the coaches have done just a really fabulous job. Reiterate what Joe and the others said earlier. Really terrific to see, and in your camp, and we'll continue to support.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'd kind of like to follow up on 2 trains of thought. One being sevens, the other being people here are old. One question is to Greg. What percentage of the current students plan to play sevens in the summer? And do you have any kind of informal thing going with that?
Yeah, so on the women's side is a much smaller group. I'll start with the women's, the much smaller group. The driving factor behind the sevens for the majority of the women were the senior group who wanted to kind of go out on a high. So the reality is, on the women's side, it's not 2 separate groups. It's one group who will transition between 15s and 7s. So they're roughly, Kelly's on the call and she can correct me, but they're sitting roughly about 23 to 25 individuals. The likelihood is it's probably 14 to 16 that will be in that 7s group, and will travel to separate tournaments. On the men's side, we are probably close to 60 to 63 individuals. The way that we looked at this was eventually the model would be where we have a top group for 15s. We have that development side, but then we also create a third group, which is freshmen coming in with no experience, who have that, bigger leap in development that's required. So the basic core skill sets, and then they are integrated into that development side, which with the development side are then integrated into that top side. With the 7s, we split it this spring and this summer, where we have a core group of about 18 on that 7 side. We will mostly likely travel with 12 to 14 of those individuals. Then the other percentage is if we look at the 20, the other 40 or so will be in that development side, which continue to develop different types of skill sets. So that's really, we took that core group and pushed them to sevens because that's more of a performance and more condition based. And then the development side was focused on the larger with more coaches, spending more time on the basics.
Yeah, I mean, and I asked that because first of all, as a player and as a forward, one of the most valuable things was going home in the summer and joining that Long Island Sevens team, B-side, I was great B-side, but, in terms of skills development, it was excellent. The second reason is because in 2011, me, along with some other Siena Rugby alumni, did start a sevens club. And we've played with some old boys, George. Strap on the boots. Tony Leva played with us in 2019. We played in New York Rugby Sevens in Randall's Island. A lot of tournaments have been canceled due to the pandemic. But, as a club, if you were interested, we would love, to pay the fee to enter the tournament. We would love to kit you guys up. And just throwing it out there. I'll put the name of the team in the chat and stuff. And if anyone ever wants to reach out, we're down. That's usual.
So one of the things that we looked at with that is, yes, we have individuals in that core group for sevens who it's almost a strategic plan, I suppose you can say, where we kind of want them to go back out into the community and kind of plant those seeds. Plant those little Siena seeds. So we had no drive to create a sevens team for the summer, but it's an excellent idea. And I think there would be a core group who would desire to do that as a more social and fun organization. And I definitely could put with that contact, we can definitely put that in place where we'll connect individuals and kind of drive them to a tournament like that. But just for your reference, what we did with the whole group, and I don't want it to sound like we've taken the top individuals and put them to sevens and then everyone else was to say the rest. We actually used pro formas, we used questionnaires with the group where we looked at the group statistically. Then we actually had the player input. So we actually had them create or fill out forms where, what was your desire? We created calls with the player group. We had excellent sevens players who we gave them the offer of sevens or more development time. And some chose the development because it was a little more relaxed and they could spend more time doing their studies. So, we gave them a full range and full option, which was exciting because we got individuals stepped up and said, I want to experience this. So to your point, those individuals would be excellent for something like this. And I think continuing on that rugby development through the summer will be exciting. So I'll definitely take your information and kind of group that group together and see if they're interested.
Thanks, Greg.
Patrick, I'm closer to Social Security than I am playing sevens again. So
we're very social, George.
Yeah,
very social league.
I do, Brandon. I do want to make one ask that I didn't. I don't think I made clear on this. Right now, with sponsorships, we're talking to 3 to 4 individuals / organizations that we're hoping to take to the next level. But obviously, we'd like a broader list for conversation. So if anybody has individuals, organizations that they think would have an interest in sponsorship, please send them my way or Greg's way, and we'll start the dialogue. The first thing is to talk to them, see what they're trying to accomplish, see if there's a fit, and then see if we could find a solution that works for everybody. So please reach out to your contacts because that's an important component for our success. Thank you.
And we're just about out of time tonight, but there's one last question in the chat. It's from Anonymous, I think. It might be a good thing. They asked for Greg if you were able to catch Ireland beating Scotland this past Saturday in Six Nations.
Unfortunately, I was actually working in the admissions department giving tours. So as far as I'm concerned, it never even happened. You know, we beat England. That's all that really matters. The rest of it was just, you know, participate and let everyone play their game. So
Hey, Greg, this is Dan Riley. It happened,
Dan.
brother. It happened.
yeah, of course, of course. Ireland did well, you know.
Yeah, well, we need to
second place
recruit
is
in
not bad.
France. I think that's the
Yeah.
conclusion from the Six Nations. You need to get over to Paris.
We need to recruit all over the place. I think there's
A
little gems out
lucky
all there.
Italian side too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks once again, everybody, for coming on tonight. Thanks for your continued support of the women's and the men's programs. There's a lot to look forward to in the coming years. And, you know, recently, you know, coming up, you can visit siena.edu/alumni/events for all the upcoming events and news that's happening around Siena. And if anybody has any questions, they can contact Greg, George, Joe. They can contact me, the alumni office. We can help with anything that you guys might need help with. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great weekend and go Saints.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Guys.